This week we hoist the 50-year-old sails for a birthday sail, we install a Noco battery charger, we build a new deck floor, and I'm especially proud to show you the doors I designed and made for the companionway. Woke up this morning and it is crazy windy. Shut up! Oh, this sounds so bad. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but it's blowing hard outside here in Southern California. We have had some awful weather the past 2 months. I don't know why I'm down here paying SoCal prices if I'm not getting SoCal weather. If you hear some banging in the background, those are my lines banging against the mast. It's a little noisy, but today's the day. I have a schedule. I have to film these things on a schedule or they never get done. And so if I don't record today, it's not getting done this week and my video will be late and I don't want that. So you may have to put up with a little bit of background noise. Okay, on with the show. Whether I'm right or wrong, I'm still the captain. There's some truth to that. But dang if this slip doesn't make me feel wrong every time I try to get the boat in or out. Regardless, it was my birthday, so we decided to take the boat out and try again. This time I tried using a different angle on the line that I tied from the stern of the boat to the dock, hoping that would give me a little better angle to pull the boat back. I almost got us out in one graceful motion, but somehow the stern line I set up snagged just for a second on the ring on the dock, and it was just enough to make the boat go a little wonky. It was a good plan, but just sheer bad luck that we got the line a little snagged there. This is how you learn to do it better next time. It wasn't perfect, but I didn't hit anything, so awesome. All right, babe, we did it. That was sketchier than I hoped, although the geometry of the lines worked out the way I wanted them to work. But anyway, we're out here, and so we're gonna try to get some sailing and enjoy a little birthday sail. "1970 was a banner year. Lee Hawk was born in a boatyard in Hong Kong somewhere. And so was I, born to a loving young couple in the panhandle of Florida. I suppose that connection creates some kind of emotional concern for the well-being of this boat. It's as if I help this boat age gracefully, somehow I'm helping myself do the same. There's something about knowing that you're from the same vintage that really kind of sparks a little joy in me, or sparks a little excitement, or maybe it's nostalgia. I don't know, maybe some of my fellow sailors out there will understand the feeling I'm talking about. So we're trying out our old, but new to us, 120% Genoa. It's only about, I think maybe 6 knots of wind today, maybe 7. So light wind conditions, we thought we'd give it a try. A little harder to control our boat with just this up. We're still getting a feel for how our old boat wants to sail. And even though it's obvious we still have much to learn, we still come back smiling every time we go out. And that's what this whole sailing journey is about. On the way back in, I even managed to get the boat docked without any major drama. Tell me when I'm going to go forward. That's not to say it still doesn't make my butt pucker a little bit every time we come in. That's a really tight corner into our slip. But we got in, safe and sound, and what better way to celebrate than with a little birthday cake? Happy birthday to me. I hope every sailor out there has a wife as awesome as mine. She's so supportive of me in this project and cheering me on when I'm trying to fix something that I don't really understand.
Love you, baby.
I love my wife, Gillian. Now that we actually have a slip, one of the first projects I've been wanting to tackle is installing a charger that will basically top off all my batteries while we're here in the slip and we have shore power available to us. I'm continuing my reorganization of the electrical setup on the boat. Previously, the starter motor and the house bank battery were basically tied together in parallel. The approach I'm taking now is I'm separating the charging system. So the starter battery will be tied to the engine and the engine only. There'll be nothing else attached to that, so that I know that the only draw coming off of that battery is the engine. And on the other side, I'm gonna have two AGM batteries, which will serve as our house bank. And while we're in the slip, I'll be able to charge all three of those batteries with my Noco Gen5x3. Bear in mind, this boat, this vessel, we're only planning on using this for coastal cruising, maybe, a weekend trip to, Catalina Island. So we don't really need to worry about having solar or having the ability to regen while we're out kind of, cruising. That's not the point of this boat. But for now, this makes sense to me, and that's what I'm going to move forward with. So far, so good. So let's finish up this install so I can tidy up the boat, because it looks like a raccoon on meth. Took everything out of every drawer and just let it go everywhere, and it's driving me crazy. So let's see if we can finish this so we can tidy up. All right, I think I can get all the extension cords through there, and then we'll mount it right here. So I mounted it with a couple of screws and then passed all the wires through the hole. The starting battery is going to go here on the left, and my two house bank are going to go here on the right, and we'll connect up the Noco leads to each of the batteries. I had to expand that hole just so I could get the fuse through. There we go. There you go, now it's through. It's tightened up. I won't bore you with the rest, but basically I just repeated that same process for both of my house batteries and got everything wired up. Everything's installed and everything works. I couldn't be happier. So over here we have our starter battery. I have the first charger from the Noco into that battery, and I have it set to standard with a lead acid battery. And then over here, we have a couple things going on. So first, you can see that I actually have the charger is topping off the starter battery, but the two house bank batteries are looking good. Right here, we've got a little bit going on. So I have a Victron Smart Shunt installed. You can see there at the top. I have the charging leads to each of the AGMs to top those off from the Noco. And then I have one other little kind of oddity here, which you can see, but I actually have my emergency bilge pump wired directly into the battery. So the thinking here is that if I did start taking on water while I was away from the boat, where all my mains were turned off, that one lone bilge pump would have a fighting chance of turning on and keeping the water out. I also installed a little switch here, see if you can hear it. Yeah, so
that's ready to go anytime I need to.
I love it when I get it right. The whole point of this channel is to show you that like you don't have to start out knowing anything. I certainly haven't, but there's so much knowledge on the internet that you can just pick a topic and watch a ton of YouTube videos. You can read articles, you can go to community forums, and you can slowly piece together your point of view on whether or not you think you're capable of doing it. But yeah, I'm super stoked. I have a battery bank now, a house bank that I understand. I have a separate starting battery, and you know, I'm starting to feel a lot more secure about the possibility of doing a weekend trip to Catalina and knowing that I'm gonna have enough juice to run my lights and stereo and some fun stuff. So anyway, get out there and give it a try. See what you can do. Okay, now that the charger's installed, I have 2 more carpentry projects I want to tackle. The first one I actually started when I was making the princess bench, but I never got it finished. I wanted to build a planked floor for the cockpit deck.
Took my measurements yesterday and then came back and I cut just the remaining pieces that I think I need. So it's this, it's like these 2, this one, and these slats down the side. So I can go back to the boat now and see if I can fit them in, see how it looks.
I wanted to build a plank floor for the cockpit deck. Not only will it be more aesthetically pleasing, but it will keep us from actually stepping on the engine compartment hatch that I installed in a previous episode. I'm less and less impressed with the engine compartment hatch the more we use it, but more on that in a future episode. I did a preliminary layout of the planks, then finished cutting all the pieces at my house before I took them back to the boat for assembly.
All right, so I'm just kind of roughing this in and seeing how I like the placement, and you know, I like it. It's super sturdy, and I need to add another cross brace, like up here, add one more there, and then I might even add just a little stubby braces under each one of these. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. All right, so I have come back day 2 and am assembling my cockpit floor. And so I learned a couple of things in my research overnight on YouTube. One is that this Ipe wood is so hard that you have to pre-drill all holes or else you'll split the wood. And sure enough, once I pre-drilled the holes, and I also went and got a different kind of stainless steel screw that was a bit stronger, I've been having success kind of mounting them together. I'm using this as my spacer so that I can maintain even space between the boards. I'm using some wood clamps here just to kind of hold the boards in place while I apply a little bit of wood glue and then screw them together. So yeah, this is coming together pretty nicely, and I don't feel quite so defeated like I did yesterday. But again, this is don't know crap about carpentry, but I enjoy messing with wood, so I'm pretty stoked with how this is turning out.
Voila.
Well, there we go. New Ipe burp.
Nice.
Well, there we go. So this is a new Ipe wood cockpit floor. Really hard wood. I'm really pleased with how it looks, and it feels really good on your feet.
Oh, it's so good.
And one of the cool things about Ipe is that even in bright sun, the wood doesn't heat up. that actually stays cool to the touch.
Overall, they went together pretty nicely, and once they were all laid out and done, I added a couple coats of varnish for good measure. My second carpentry project was a little more ambitious.
So I'm thinking about making some, like, what do you call them, just basic hinged butterfly doors here. So just trying to make some sketches, some diagrams, trying to figure out what I think might work. I'm just tired of always taking the weather boards. I think that's what they're called. I think they're called weather boards, side boards, some kind of board, in and out every time we want to come off and on the boat. We can save these, of course, for like inclement weather, but I just think having some actual doors here would be much easier to use.
So the idea is I want to create like a butterfly door that we can open up so that when we're inside having dinner or relaxing, we can just really easily close it up and have some privacy. So I made a template out of cardboard to kind of check my measurements. And it looks like I'm actually good side to side. But the thing that I'm gonna have to adjust for is there's a slight arc at the top of the cabin. So I'll use the top piece that exists now. Let's see. And I'll use that and I'll trace that, and then we'll see if we can get the arc just right and see if we can close that up. Yeah, all right.
Nice.
You can see that there's a, oh, look at that, it's like crazy. It's like taller on this side and this side. That makes sense. When I measured it, it gave me kind of a weird measurement, so.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at the center of the hole right there, and then I'm lining that up with the center of the template. Man, it smells like pee out here. Does it smell like pee to you out here? I keep getting a whiff of pee. Well, but still, you see how like this is,
Yep.
that's basically a straight edge, and
Yeah.
that side is a curved edge.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm having to try to replicate.
Yeah.
Now that I had my measurements, I could go back to the house and get to cutting some lumber. Overall, I was pretty pleased with the technique I used to make the bench, so I basically followed the same approach. I glued the planks together to make the doors, and I let those set up before moving on. As the glue began to dry, I could see I was having the same problem with an uneven bead of dried glue between each plank, so I'd have to do something to kind of blend those seams together a bit more. To help reinforce each door panel, I wanted thin strips of ipe wood that I could mount widthwise on the back of each door panel. I used my little table saw, and I ripped a bunch of about 1/4 inch by 1 inch strips of ipe wood. I also had to cut the door panels down to the correct width, so I threw those on the table saw as well and trimmed them down to size. This was followed by another long sanding session. Once my reinforcement strips were cut down to size, and because the wood is so hard, I knew I had to pre-drill all the holes for all the screws. I added some glue, then I carefully screwed them into place. I got overly cocky after the first strip and I used my drill to screw it in, and that was a mistake. Once I got all the strips secured and in place, I was starting to feel like this might actually turn out all right. I went back to sanding with the finer grit sandpaper on the orbital sander but this caused another problem.
So I've sanded down the tops and the backs of the hatch doors, but you can see where the sander went over the wood glue, it kind of left these discolorations where it sanded off like a little bit of the bevel of the wood glue. So I'm gonna tape it and see if I can put some, like one little bit of glue over everything to kind of even out the color so it doesn't look so janky. See if that works.
I decided to mask off each seam and reapply enough glue that each seam would look more uniform. This took a minute to do, but I felt like it would be worth it. Man, you gotta love it. Just finger painting with glue.
I'll have to wait and see how this dries, but I think once it dries, it'll blend a little better than it was doing before with all those blotches and stuff. But now we gotta let it dry and we'll see when it's dry. Wow, that looks so much better. Look at that. That worked out good. Those seams actually look uniform now. That's awesome. Nice.
I decided to do the final fitting of each door on the boat. I was afraid that if I pre-cut them, I'd screw up the top edges and I'd just ruin the project. It was a little awkward to get them lined up and to score the top edge or the top edge line of the door, but I kind of held it in place and I managed to get what I needed. I'm still using this crappy jigsaw, but it's all I have, so it'll have to do.
Not too shabby.
Overall, I think this is looking pretty good so far. It took a little bit of maneuvering to get the first door hung in the position I wanted, and I used some folded cardboard as a shim to get the right height between the door and the cockpit bench. Gotta be honest, I was pretty scared this wouldn't turn out like I hoped.
Barely have to touch it.
I used some Sikaflex on the screws and hinges because that's pretty old wood that I'm screwing into, and hopefully this will keep out some of the moisture. In retrospect, I probably should have epoxied the whole door frame first. Hindsight's 20/20, folks. I can always do it again if I have to, but this is how I did it this time. These old strips of teak on the cockpit seat are a disaster. There's little screws sticking up, it'll scratch your butt or your foot if you're not careful, and the plan is to take those off the seat inside the cockpit. So I had a thought, maybe I can use some of these thin strips as a little accent on the doors. Basically, I decided to use a couple of these strips as a bit of door flashing to hide the seam between both doors. And then I mounted the actual brass hook that will keep the doors closed over the seam, so the seam's not even visible at all. So feel pretty good about that. The doors are done. They're not too wonky, but they're not perfect either because I'm not a great carpenter. They fit the vibe of the boat, they're made of a proper hardwood, and best of all, they're my own design. Pat myself on the back. I'm feeling pretty good about my wooden doors. All right, and that brings us to the end of another episode. Thanks so much for watching. We have so many more projects ahead. This boat is so far from done. So do us a favor and like this video. Just, if you're watching it, move your cursor up to the thumb button and click it. That would be a big help. Subscribe to the channel if you like the journey that we're on. And don't forget to leave a comment. It's been super cool reading comments from viewers down in New Zealand and Australia and England, and everyone leaving me such awesome pieces of advice. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you taking the time. It does mean a lot to me, and I actually do feel the positive encouragement, and it motivates me to keep going, and like I'm not a complete moron for tackling this project. And if you really want to help us out, go buy some merch at offshoreesprit.com. Gotta be honest, I may not be as popular as Delos and Gone with the Winds and Parlay Revival, but I'd be willing to put my logo up against theirs any day of the week. The profit from every sale is basically going right back into the boat. We have a lot of money we still need to invest in this, from the running rigging to the standing rigging to more carpentry to the inevitable engine repair that will for sure be required at some point. Yeah, these old boats are expensive, but worth it, I think. Really appreciate you being here, and we'll see you on the next episode.